Hello! Today I'll be showing you how to introduce Nuke into your Blender workflow. So first of all, why Nuke? Well, Nuke is the industry standard compositing program, and it is used on almost every movie you can think of, such as the LEGO movies, the things I try to recreate. And Nuke gives you so much power, but there aren't any really good tutorials on how to set up Nuke for Blender properly. Today I'll be showing you how to set up your Blender file for perfect compatibility in Nuke, and same thing with your Nuke settings. I'll also be showing off my basic Nuke script that I would do. A script, by the way, is a node tree. It's just what they call it in Nuke. So some of the main effects we'll be teaching you how to use in Nuke from your Blender file and how to set it all up is adding your mist pass, adding in depth of field inside of Nuke instead of Blender so that Blender doesn't denoise it and make it look all smudgy. Auto lens flares, similar to how the LEGO Batman movie did it, adding chromatic aberration, color correction, and vignetting, and also changing the color space into aces. So let's get right into it. So the first thing is that you should download Nuke. Now when you go to the Nuke website, you will find that it is very expensive, and there is a workaround. You may see this and think, oh my god, I cannot pay for this, it's not worth it, I can just use any alternative. But if you scroll down far enough on their page, you can find Nuke non-commercial. You can click find out more, and in here it has a page where you can get Nuke non-commercial. So if you scroll down the page, you'll find a button that says get Nuke non-commercial. From here, it'll bring you to a page where you have to fill all this information about what you do and what you use it for so that you are qualified to use it. And then you'll be able to download it. You download it from this page and you download for whatever you have. I have a Windows computer, but if you have a Mac, get the Mac one. If you have a Linux, get the Linux one. So this tutorial we'll be using the Windows one. Just click on that and it should download. So once it's done downloading, it should be downloaded as a zip, as you can see right here. What you gotta do is you can click extract all and it will extract it into a folder like this. Now in this folder, you can double click it and basically you just do all this. You say yes, next, and then install. I've already got it installed, so that won't be a problem. Now once it's done downloading, you can find it. Search up Nuke. You may see a million shortcuts on your desktop, but if you go in here, you also may find a million of them. You're gonna have to look for the non-commercial one. So Nuke 13.1 v3, whatever version is out at the time you're watching this tutorial, and it says non-commercial. That's the one you're gonna need. Make sure it does not say Nuke X or anything weird. So when you open it, it will start opening. You start off with this. Don't close that. Leave it open, and you can see here it is in. So now when you first open Nuke, it should ask you for a license. For me, I already have it in. And if I recall correctly, you either have to log in or you just have to find the subscription ID. So for example, make sure you have a Foundry account here. You can just go to your top right, my account, go to my products, go to Nuke, show contents, view your entitlement. So from here, you can find the subscription ID if you need it. So hopefully it all worked out. Maybe you might have to wait a day or two until you can activate it. I know some people have had some problems with it, but just do some troubleshooting, search up online for some ways to fix it. So we now have Nuke downloaded and opened. So there's no need right now for us to have Nuke open here. So I recommend pinning Nuke to your taskbar so you know which version you need and just close it. Good job, you've just installed Nuke. The next step is now to open whatever Blender file you have that you want to test out. For this tutorial, I'll be using a work in progress scene I've been working on for a new video. Don't ask what it is, I don't want to spoil it for anyone. So I'm just going to choose a good shot for an example. We'll be using this shot right here. So let's show you how to set up your Blender file. There's not much you have to do apart from these few things. So first thing you gotta do to set up your Blender file for Nuke is go to your output properties and switch the file format to OpenEXR multi-layer. Don't worry, it won't be that big of a file if you follow these few steps, so please listen carefully. Make sure to choose whatever color you need. For this one, I already have a Sky HDRI, so there's no need for me to switch it to RGBA. So I just set it to RGB. RGBA is if you want transparency in the background, if you already set it up here in film. Color depth, I just leave it to default. And this is the important part, switch the codec to DWAA. It is lossy, and it is just a lossy codec. Now, don't be worried. You don't even notice a single difference. At least I have never noticed a difference between this and with none. And with that, you should be all good. Now, as you see here, it's a multi-layer. So if you go to your view layer properties right here, this is where you can enable different view layers. The few we need for sure to have is the combined and the Z. The Z is so we can enable depth of field later on. So basically, if you have volumetrics, I recommend turning them off. If you want them on, make a separate render pass in Eevee, where you will then later combine the Z pass and the mist pass from the Eevee into your cycles pass in Nuke, so that you can properly use Nuke with it. As a volumetrics with cycles X now break the Z pass. At least that's what I've noticed. So I'm gonna have the volumetrics off. And yeah, so if you want mist, make sure to enable mist right here. And also I recommend having denoising. It really matters on your case if you really have time for a lot of samples, but I use open image denoise, albedo and normal, and accurate. And also with this, if you use it, you also get a pass that will say noisy in Nuke, so that just in case you want that, you can use it. So with all that, we can now hit render. And I'll come back after it's done and we'll show you what to do with Nuke. Also, this might be an issue I've had recently with Cycles X and my Mechabricks workflow, is that they totally break the mist channel. So that's something you'd have to use Eevee to create. And hopefully it didn't break the depth channel. So now you have your finished render. Unless you're using the render animation, you have to manually go to save, and then you got to save it to wherever you need it. I'll be saving it in this folder called tutorial. We'll call it based. Great. I'm just going to keep this here so that we can compare it later. Now do your first job here, which was opening up Nuke once again. And there we go. All right, great. So now you see this right here. This automatically makes you a new file, so you'll be all good to go. Also, one important thing about the non-commercial version of Nuke is that there's a limit of 1920 by 1080p of the resolution of your output. One way to get around it is you can make different tiles that you can combine later in any editing software you do, or if you want to do a portrait video, you can rotate in Nuke and then rotate it back in your editing software. Just some quick ways to get around it. Apart from that, the non-commercial version of Nuke shouldn't cause you any problems. So first thing you gotta do in Nuke is go to Edit Project Settings. We're going to be setting up a few main things. So set the full size format to the size of your render. So here it is, 1920 by 1080p, just to make things easier later on if anything weird happens. So one main thing is I like to use aces. You don't need aces in Blender. You only need aces in Nuke. It's because we're getting a linear color space output from Blender. So that means that it's linear and we just got to convert it to a proper color space. So I recommend using aces because it can handle everything really well. According to the Lego Movie, it's because it handles saturation really well. I watched an hour-long video that one of the guys who worked on it talked about why they use aces. So it handles high saturation stuff really well. So switch your color management to OCIO up here, and then OCIO config to aces 1.1. And everything else, if it looks the same like this on your end, it should be good. And you can just close this project settings right here. And if you have any troubles using Nuke, recommend searching up some basic tutorials. There aren't many, but just try to find one that's good. If I find one, I'll put it in the description below. Okay, now just save your Nuke project file by clicking Ctrl S. It's a pretty bad file explorer here, but you can figure it out, like go into home. You can get to your desktop through here. And if I can find the tutorial folder, I'll put it in here and name it, click enter, and it should save it there. So now if you want to know if you saved Nuke or not since the last time you did, you can just check up here. Right now, we know it's been saved since last time, but if I do anything like that, and now it says modified, we'll click Ctrl S to save, it will now be all good. So we're going to start off by getting in our render. Okay, so you got to locate your render. Here it's a single EXR file, but if it's an animation, what you got to do is find the folder and drag the folder into Nuke like that, and it will automatically import the animation. But for here, we can just open here and import the EXR by dragging it in like so, and it imports it automatically. Now, it will automatically handle the file format itself with scene linear, which is correct. Now, first step is to plug this into your viewer, and you see that there's nothing visible. Don't worry, it will be all good. Just give me a second. So we got the EXR file in here and it's working all good, but why don't we see anything? Well, because we have to add a shuffle node to specify which channel we want to see from the EXR file, as it's multi-layer. So a quick way to search for a node is click tab, and we're going to be searching for the shuffle node. And you can type in the name of whatever node you need to get. So for this instance, we need to get the shuffle node. So you click on that and it'll automatically put it here if you have the read node selected. All right, great. I added a shuffle node, but I don't see anything yet. Well, you got to do a little bit more. So now you have to go up here to the shuffle properties. If you don't see the properties panel of the node that you need to edit up here anytime in the tutorial, just double click on the node inside of your little node graph. So I double click on it here and now it's up here. Because if I close it, I can double click on it and now it's up there. To make it visible, switch your input layer to view layer combined. And there we go. We can see what we saw in Blender with a teeny bit different color, because it's fully linear inside of Nuke. You can move around in here with your middle mouse click and zoom in with scroll and click middle mouse click to reset it. And you also drag these panels like this. Now we gotta make it work properly. The colors seem a little off and it's not converted to aces yet. It's still in the linear color space. So to make it into the aces color space, we're gonna add in a node called the OCIO color space node. It'll allow you to convert the color space into whatever you want it to be from whatever it is. So for this instance, we're going to add it in here by clicking tab, type in OCIO color space, click enter, and it should put it in. Now double click on it if it isn't up there. So we got to specify what we're inputting and what we're outputting. So since we know it's from Blender, we know it's an sRGB linear color space. So to find that, go to here, the input, drop down, switch to utility, and find utility linear sRGB. And now you can choose the output color space. So to choose one, go to color spaces and go to aces and choose one of these. The ones that are actually good, or at least that work well, are aces 2065-1, which I use for my show I'm working on called Dice Quest. There's CC, do not use CC. As seen, it looks like that. Do not use CCT, it looks like that. Do not use proxy, it looks like that. And you can use aces CG. For today, we're going to be using aces CG like they did in the Lego Batman movie. As you see, it already looks pretty nice, which is mostly carried by my lighting, but let's see what we can do now. So now I'm going to be setting up a node so that you can actually output the composite that you make in Nuke, just in case you don't want to do anything else to it. So simply click tab and add in a write node. Now, if you weren't selected on the OCIO color space, you can just drag the write node into here. And this write node will give you the ability to write it to anywhere you want. So now you can make sure it's double clicked on. Go to the properties and see file, click on this right here and go to where the file is located, or at least wherever you want to export it to. I'm putting it to where the folder is of this project, and you can name it right here. You can name it to basic, compositing. We're going to be making a BNG, so add in .png right here. All the settings were almost perfectly chosen apart from the output transform. You're going to have to switch that to color spaces, output sRGB to convert it back to what a normal image will be like. And just like that, you can click render and click OK, and it will render it. Let's go to our folder and find it. And as you can see right here, we got the image working all nicely. You can see here, we know everything's working properly. Great, we now have a basic Nuke script for Blender workflows. So we're going to be showing you how to do a few things. We're going to be starting off by doing basic effects, like adding in a mist pass. So let's add that. First thing is we got to get our mist layer from our image. And the way we do that is by adding in another shuffle node. Click tab, shuffle, and there we go. The way you can plug in the image is by grabbing the B from the shuffle here, drag it into the image node. And to keep everything organized, you can click Control. You see these yellow points. You can click on one and create a new point on one of these connections, and you can organize it much better. I recommend keeping your scripts organized, or else it will become a mess very quickly and hard to understand. I recommend closing the other properties of other nodes to make it easier for you to deal with. So yeah, we're going to double click on this, and we're going to switch the input layer to mist. And we're going to be plugging this into the red. You can switch this, but just to make this simple for everyone, we're going to just keep it as RGBA and just plug into the red channel. But say you want to preview it. You don't want to manually drag that in, but hey, you can't even see it. Well, all you want to do is select the node you want to see and click 1 on it. It will automatically connect it to the viewer node. And also, if you want to deactivate a node, you can click D on it and it will deactivate it. And as you can see here, we're deactivating the color space. So we're going to go back over here to the shuffle node, and we're going to be showing you how to add a basic merge node. So we're going to actually go down here to underneath the OCIO color space and click tab, search for the merge node. Add that in and place it roughly here. And there we go. We now have a merge node. You'll see 2 inputs. We have an A and a B. And also over on the side here will be a input that's unnamed till you pull it out called mask.
I wear a mask with a smile.
Drag that into the shuffled 2. So we're going to preview the right node again so we can see what's happening in the tree. And we're going to double click on the merge node so that we can switch some settings. So first things first, we know our shuffle node puts the mist into the red channel. So in our merge node properties, switch the mask right here, the drop down to RGBA.red. Just like that, you can see it's mixing it properly. But I don't think this is what you want. The mist should be happening back there, not on the things you want in focus. So the way these merge nodes work is that B is the main layer and A is what's affecting it. So we're going to unplug the A by pulling on it like so, and grabbing the B and plugging that into it. And just like that, you can see this. This is now putting this on the base, and now it may look like nothing's happening. So now we got to figure out a way to put something in the A input so we can actually merge something. So what we're going to do here is get a node called constant. A constant here is a node that allows us to choose a color. So we're going to switch channels to RGBA, and we got to choose a color. This isn't the easiest way to switch colors, and also to see the color, you can see it right here and click 1 on it. So switching colors here doesn't seem so easy, but there's a simple little button on the right, this color wheel, you can click on and it'll open up this. So to control this color wheel, you can use right click on the inside of it, move it to the left or right to change the value setting. So you can make it really bright and it can go over the 1 setting because it's using your color space. So we're going to be setting up a color that will look nice like this. And we also can hold left click in here and change the saturation and the hue by rotating it around like so. But what I would do for this is just use it for saturation. Use this little knob right here for the hue and just change saturation like that. So yeah, I'm going to choose something that's a dark bluish color to plug it into it. Make sure the alpha here is set to 1 to avoid any problem. So we're going to grab this A little arrow and plug into the constant, and then we're going to click on 1 on right again to see it. We can see it's working. So if we select the merge node and click D, see how it's affecting it. And also, if you want to change how powerful it is, you can use a slider right here that says mix. And I'm going to switch it to 0.5. So you can also see it how it is with 0, 1, 0.5 is good for me. It blends the ground pretty nicely as I don't have a Lego ground yet. So just like that, you have a mist pass combined with it. You also, by the way, can just make it white, but I'm just going to use this color because usually mist is white, but I like to use it stylistically. Now we're going to be moving on into a more advanced part of this that you can do is depth of field. So we can avoid the denoiser smudging all of our nice bokeh and doing it all in Nuke instead. So we can have a clean, denoised image with no bokeh, and then in Nuke, we can add the bokeh. Now, first things first, when you rendered, make sure you didn't have depth of field on your camera enabled, or else you just can't do this as it breaks completely. So to do this, make sure we still have our right node on our view, and click tab on our merge node. And search for Z defocus. That's the node that will do all the nice stuff for us. As you see here, it's not really doing any nice things yet. So we got a few things we got to do for it. So what you got to do is switch the channels to RGB. You have to switch the depth channel to the view layer depth.z. And with that, we can switch the math to depth. And we can drag this little focal point right here, you see, into where we want it. We're going to focus on our little guy over here. And see, it is working. We have this out of focus, and this guy is in focus. So there's some more settings we can look at. We're going to switch this output here so we can see what we're doing into focal plane setup. The right here means it's in focus, and if we change the depth of field, we'll see that we can change how much is in focus. So if you want to make it even bigger, you can set it to 10 or to 5. You can just put in numbers by yourself to make it bigger. But here, green is even more in focus, I believe, because if you zoom in here, you already see little green, but if we up the depth of field, that's our little transition. So I'm going to have it on his face, turn up the depth of field to have him fully in focus so we avoid any issues that could happen. So this is an issue that can happen, and the way to fix this is just by creating an EV render pass for the Zs, and that one should have no problems. Unlike this. This won't be too visible though. Switch the output back to result if you're happy with what you have here. So back to result, and you can see this. Now it's focused properly. You got all of them in focus, and this boy is blurred out. Also, one thing is blur inside. This thing is to help smoothen the transition. I recommend unchecking it unless it's something noticeable that you might see that might affect the feel of it. So I recommend just having blur inside off. All right, so now we can change the size of the depth of field. But to do that, switch the maximum to max to like 100. And you can change the size of your depth of field right here. So you can just change it to something high. And if you want to make it bigger, you can change the number in here. I'm going to set it to like 30 just for a more dramatic focus. Okay, so now that looks pretty good, but I want to put in a custom bokeh to give it some realism. So to do that, so find a bokeh lens, but basically once you have it, you're going to drag it into here. So right here, I have mine right here. It's called bokeh 12. And what you can do is set input for the matte paint. So that's what we got. And that's what we're going to be plugging into our CFD focus into a filter right here. And to actually set as bokeh, switch the filter type to image and click use input channels. Switch the image filter to impulse. And that should be all good now. So with this, we can see it here a little bit. And now if you want to make it anamorphic bokeh, all you gotta simply do is add in a transform node right here. If you click 1 on it, you can specify, you can see just this. You can click on this 2 beside the scale and set the height to 2. Just like that, it should create a stretched up one. It works, and you can see it. We can scale it up a little bit. And there we go, we got some anamorphic bokeh right there. So that's how you add in depth of field. I'm gonna be now showing you how to add in some lens flares, also known as auto flare. You find the description below, and it's based off of the Lego Batman movies auto flare node. And go to their drive link. All you gotta do is select all this text. So it take a little bit. And Control C and go to your Nuke and make sure you're nothing selected and click Control V. Just like that, it'll paste it in a node that's not even from Nuke. It's pretty awesome. So now we're gonna be showing you how to set it up. First things first, grab the source arrow, put it to the CD focus, and that will be the main part you need to do. We're gonna be dragging these down a little bit, and we're gonna add in a new merge node. And in this merge node, plug it in right here, and you see it automatically put that in the B, and we're gonna grab this A and put it into the auto flare. And just like that, we have some weird looking flares. Why does it look so weird? You may be asking. Well, let me just solve that after we do this. Click Control, and there we go. Now it looks nice. So go to the merge. You gotta change something very important. Switch the operation to plus. Just like that, it is now properly being added to your image. Make sure to remove the transform properties so that you can take away that weird thing, that weird circle. Same thing, the focal point closer to zero focus. And you see here, you can change the mix right here, and you can change how effective they are. So I'm going to set this for like 2.2, and you can just do that and change it. And that's how you add in some lens flares. It looks really nice, and I recommend using it, especially with the Lego stuff. Also, I'm going to show you how to change the exposure realistically. So click Tab, search for the exposure node, add that in, and we're going to put it in after the OCIO color space right here, and double click on it with this node to use it. Switch the adjust in to stops, and now you're all good. So let's test it out. I recommend not having auto flares on when doing compositing. Same thing, depth of field at least, but you can change the exposure. It is actually very realistically done, especially with aces. You can see when it turns up, it looks really good still and doesn't make it look bad. Because if we remove our aces, the color space transfer, it looks like that. And my God, I've never seen something look so bad. Like, it does not make sense. It's just so weird. So that's why we put it on. And it really makes a lot more sense to it. So for this, I'm going to just leave it to 0. I don't need it for this shot. And you can disable it as well. So I'm going to do that. We're going to get back to where we were by re-enabling the field, re-enabling the lens flares. After all that, I'm going to be adding in some color grading. This is what I end up using. I mess with the white point here because it's the cleanest one to mess with, and the gain to change color. So I click on the color wheel beside those two, and you can change the color, the white point, so we can really just mess with the colors, and then change the gain color, and just like that, you can just totally change the feel of your image. Now it feels like the Matrix or something similar. All right, so next up, I'm just gonna disable that because I don't want to mess with that. I'm gonna be showing you how to add chromatic aberration. So the way we do it is pretty simple. We're going to be separating the RG and B channels and then recombining RGB channels. But what we're going to do is we're going to distort one of the channels so that when we combine them again, it'll have a cool colored edge around the edges of the screen. So to do that, I'm going to be adding in the shuffle node and just copy it and then unselect it and just paste two of them over here. Make sure you unselect every time so you don't put it in by accident. And then you can just plug them both in here. Or what I would like to do to organize this is to make one right here and just plug these into that one and create points here and a point here. And we have a good thing going on here. All right, so now double click on the first one and unplug everything apart from the red and the alpha. Then the second one, unplug everything but the green and alpha. And the last one, unplug everything but the blue and alpha. And just like that, we have these separate passes of each color. And then we're gonna just create some more shuffle nodes to combine them all again. So shuffle, and then another shuffle node underneath that one, which we're gonna combine here. So we're gonna put in B, which would be this one. Then A would be this one. And we're going to close all these other ones so we don't get lost. And inside of this first one, we're going to be plugging in. So in A, RGBA. So we're going to unplug all these and just plug in the green into the green from this. Make sure the alpha is also plugged in and the red. And then for the next one, we're going to do the same thing, but plug this one into the A. Switch this to A, RGBA. Plug in the blue in there. Boom, boom, and we get it all combined again. As you can test it by boom, boom, they're the same. So boom, boom. So I'm just gonna organize that. And now we're gonna do the main part for the whole chromatic aberration so that we actually see a difference. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna click on the first one on the left, which is the red one, and click tab and add in a lens distortion node. I'm going to drag that down here. Double click on it. What I did for mine was I used the default settings. They should be all good. And just switch the denominator here to what you like. So make sure it goes to a negative. And just like that, we have a really strong chromatic aberration. And finally, we're going to be showing you how to add a vignette to all of this. We go to the description below. We're going to go here so we can see what it can do. And we're going to click this, open this page, and just click plain text. Copy it all. Ctrl-C. Go back to Nuke, Ctrl-V, you now have a Vignette node. Drag it right here, and just like that, it works. Double click on it, and you can change some stuff here. If you go into project settings, and your size format is not the same as the actual output, or at least your render, then the Vignette will be weird. See here, it does that, which we don't want, at least I don't think you do. So just make sure it's the same as your render. You can click preview, you can preview what it look like, and just change it to your desired look here. So right now it's just like a circle, so I'm gonna add in some squash to 0.5, some softness, and if you disable preview, boom. And switch to mix here, you can turn it down or up. I'll set to 0.6, and there we go. We have a final composite, and if you want with color, and don't forget you can just render right here. So now we're done, and we're just gonna change the name to just compositing. And also if it's an animation, you can switch this to input, and it will set the timeline to the right range, so the range of your image sequence. And if we open the image, this is before, that's after. It's such a beautiful change. And also a reminder, this is what it looked like in Blender, and this is what it looks like now. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you're interested in Nuke, I recommend searching out more about it so you can learn more. You can do so many amazing things in it. This is just the start and just the basic setup for Blender stuff. So I wish you good luck, and I look forward to more people using Nuke in their Blender workflow. So make sure to subscribe if this helped. Thanks for watching. See ya. Also a big thank you to all my Patreons, especially my MVP Patreon, Planet.